Hello and welcome to this Micro Focus ZENworks configuration video demonstrating the ZCM Zone database migration. This series of videos talks about the database migrations and the different options. This particular video in the series will demonstrate migrating from a ZCM 2017 with an internal Sybase database to an internal PostgreSQL database using the versatile DB migration tool. In this database migration video series, the first one is details on the database migration options. Be sure to watch this one. It has all the details. The next one will be a demonstration using the DB migration tool, demonstrating how to upgrade ZCM 2017 with an internal Sybase to an internal PostgreSQL. The next demonstration is using ZCM 2020 installer ISO to upgrade ZCM 2017 with an internal Sybase database to an internal PostgreSQL. And the final one in this series is a demonstration using the DB migration tool on a ZCM 2017 with an external MSSQL database to internal PostgreSQL. Part of the overview in this video is first review the ZCM database migration options detail presentation. That's a separate presentation in this series. We'll do a walkthrough on upgrading the ZCM 2017 zone with Sybase using a standalone DB migration tool, the utilities commands, and troubleshooting and resources. We're now going to do a demonstration on a 2017 zone that has a Sybase database migration to PostgreSQL using the tool. If you're uncertain where to get the tool, go to your customer portal. Under the 2020 ZENworks at the bottom, you have the DB migration tool. This is very well documented, but let's say you're in 2017. You can go to the embedded database administration and migrating data from an internal Sybase to the PostgreSQL database using the tool. Version 3 is out. And that ultimately takes you to the 2020 documentation. We're going to check out our appliances. We're going to log into our appliance, which has a 150 IP address, and you can see the Sybase is located here as well. Okay, if we go home and we go to Control Center, we can log in. If we look at our configuration, we can see we're on 17.4. There are two primary servers, and our diagnostics shows that we have the Sybase database on the 150, which is the first primary server. Next, we're going to go to WinSCP, and we backed up our files prior to, and this is all documented. We also uploaded under the temp directory the DB migration tool 3.0 that's already extracted. And as we look in there, we have the 20.1.0 jar. So we're going to go ahead and go to the console now on the 150 primary server, and we're going to go to cd tmp. And we're going to go to the directory where the DB migration tool is, and we're going to now run it will then verify the type of database as we mentioned and run a ZDC and ask if we want to continue. It's starting the migration, extracting the jar file. It says ensure that all services are stopped on all other servers. Are you sure you want to proceed? I'm going to say yes. Management zone, a ZCC administrator of some sort. It's now verifying whether the services are still running or not. Notice that it stopped because one of the primary servers still has the services running. Let's go over to that server. And let's stop those services. And I'm going to stop Zen server and Zen loader. Now that that's done, let's go on back. And try our tool again. We'll say yes. Administrator username. Double check services. At which time it'll continue and run a ZDC. Notice it does say embedded Sybase. It's doing both databases, the ZENworks database and the audit database. Then it's going to ask us, do we want the embedded PostgreSQL or the external PostgreSQL? And we're going to go embedded for this one, for both the ZENworks database and the audit database. And enter to start the migration. Now, if you selected external PostgreSQL database, you would have to give the parameters for the administrator, the ports, the IP address, name of the server, and so forth. We'll let this run through. As you can see, our database migration is complete. There are some details here that need to be looked at after. If you notice, it tells you to copy the new existing ZDM XML, Zen Audit XML, DM account properties, DM mapping properties, and Zen Audit DMA accounts files to the other primary servers. This allows them to connect to the database. Also, if you have an embedded Postgres, which we do, we'll need to change the IP address of a couple of those files. And then we're going to copy the search config XML to make sure that we have case insensitivity on the password. And then we're going to start the services. So let's go ahead and do those. We can do that in WinSCP. Here are our files. Notice if we open this up, it now shows still embedded, but PostgreSQL. Okay. It also has a 127.0.0.1. Same with the audit. Now this is fine on this server, but if we're moving these or copying these to the other servers, then we need to make sure we adjust them. And then in the Zen Audit DMA properties, it has the hash for our password for our accounts getting into the databases. So we're going to grab these files. We are going to copy them down to backups. We're going to go into search. And if we open this up, we can see that we have case insensitive search is true, and that's how we want it. We'll copy that down in case we need it as well. Next, we'll go to our 151 server. And if we go over to the etc, hop, Novell, ZENworks data model, we can see what was in here before was the embedded on 150, but we can see it says Sybase, OEM database. Okay, so that's why we're going to overwrite these. But first, we're going to go and open these and change this to right. And we change this one as well. Now we can take these files, all but the search, and we can overlay them onto this primary server. All right. Then we're going to look in the search. Notice case insensitivity is false. So we either change that to true or we copy this one over. Now we just need to restart services on both of the primaries. We're just going to restart everything. We'll go over to our 151 and we'll restart everything. Now let's see if we can connect to our servers through ZCC. There's our 1740 server. Let's check our configuration. Still says Sybase. Let's go ahead and let's reboot. I found that with a major upgrade anyhow, it's best to reboot. And a database is pretty much a major upgrade. It's still coming up. I'm going to log in here and turn SSHD on so that we can get to it within WinSCP. All right, if we look at var op Novell log ZENworks, we will see a migration directory in here with our data validation. If we bring these two down, we can view them. Our migration log, our ZDC results in our reports folder. Bring those down if you wanted to. And then we can bring this one down and we can view all of them. Next we can go to, if we went to ZENworks. We can see our loader messages or our ZENworks configure log will be here, and it's updated as of recently because it uses those commands. We can also see that the database, ZCM DB and audit DB, the files are here. If we go to PostgreSQL under var op novel, that's where our new database is. Should we revert, it'll obviously know where it is and pull up the old Sybase instead. Go to etc op novel ZENworks. You'll see the Sybase Anywhere database backup. That folder is used should you have to revert. That's our demonstration. Let's go see if we're live. We can sign into our administration console. We can check our ZENworks configuration. We now see it's PostgreSQL on the 150. We have our two primaries, and now we're also at PostgreSQL. To be certain, let's go over to 151. Check our configuration. We can see it sees the PostgreSQL at 150. If we go home, ZENworks Control Center, and we can connect. So we now have migrated successfully over to PostgreSQL, the two databases. This concludes this demo on migrating using the DB migration tool from Sybase to PostgreSQL. Some directory and file locations are listed here: the Sybase database original location, the Postgres database location, the backed up Sybase database, working XML files, the backed up XML files, and again, if reverted, the PostgreSQL backup directory. Even if you revert, it'll back up that PostgreSQL. And then the ZDC conf can be used to ignore the ZDC column and table error. Check documentation for any silent migrations or use of the input properties files. That's that customization file I referred to earlier in the presentation. Login information. Supported PostgreSQL version. Embedded database, PostgreSQL 9.5. External database, PostgreSQL 10x. And then your migration logs. If you want to see what's going on or what actually transpired, the Novell ZENworks migration log is in those directories there under the logs directory. Under the logs directory, it'll have a migration directory so that you can see all the separate migration logs. Data validation logs, and those are the HTML reports and CSV files in case there's failures. And those file names are ZCM data validation status log and audit data validation status log. And then ZDC reports. You can find them in the migration reports under the timestamp. If you run a ZDC report, you'll find that quite naturally. Cleaning up of Sybase database configuration files will be done as part of the next update, just so you know. Utilities and commands. pgadmin 4, dbeaver, both utilities and others can be used for database administration, connecting to the database. Again, your zman commands to back up and restore the ZENworks zone information is zman ZSB, which is ZENworks server backup. And then backup and restore databases, zman DB, database backup. And that's obviously if they're embedded. Database connection credentials, if you need to connect to the database with one of these pgadmin 4 utilities or dbeaver utility, feel free to run the zman DGC. If you have rights, it'll give you back your Zen admin and the long password you could use for connecting to both DGC, which is a ZENworks database, and DGCA, which is the audit database. Terminal commands. So on the terminal, you can run the Java command with the DB migration tool. There's some systemctl commands to start and stop and check status of things like the Zen loader, the Zen server, Sybase, Sybase audit, and then the Zen PostgreSQL service. And then the Novell ZENworks configure -c revert DB migration configure action command if you are reverting. Check the documentation for those details. We'll cover it in just a little bit in this presentation. Some things about reverting back to the original database. Stop all the ZENworks primary services. At the command prompt or terminal, type Novell ZENworks configure -c revert DB migration configure action. A backup of the PostgreSQL configuration will be taken. Postgres data will still remain on the server in case of an embedded database. Original database service will be enabled and started, and PostgreSQL service will be disabled and stopped. Warning again, as I mentioned earlier, this configure action of reverting the database from PostgreSQL to its original and backs up the PostgreSQL database, but any data that was captured in between will be lost. Some migration resources, TIDS documents and articles. We have the 2017 Upgrade Cookbook, which is TIDS 7018169, and ZCM 2020 Upgrade Cookbook, which is TIDS 7024089. Moving the database, ZENworks document site, there's an article out there regarding database maintenance and reference guide. So if you're moving the database from one primary to another, you're retiring a server, you want to change from Oracle to MS-SQL or MS-SQL to another supported platform, there's the database maintenance reference guide has those different options available for you. So check that out. If it's embedded, PostgreSQL database from one primary server to another primary server is an option, and that's in the documentation. If it's embedded, there's an internal PostgreSQL database to an external PostgreSQL database. So those types of maneuvers are available. Also the same thing with external. PostgreSQL, MS-SQL, Oracle. There's some processes out there under the reference guide to be able to go to different platforms, or if you're retiring a primary server, and double check those under the maintenance reference guide. There is a cool solutions migrating the OEM PostgreSQL database to an external PostgreSQL database. And so we have cool solutions out there as well to reference. So there's plenty of details out there for you to have a successful migration of your database. This concludes this Micro Focus ZENworks configuration video tutorial demonstrating the migration from ZCM 2017 with an internal Sybase database to internal Postgres database using the versatile DB migration tool. Be sure to catch the other demonstration videos in this series if you choose to have a different migration option.